Okay. Mr. Herman is on business in New York, so he will not attend tonight, and Mr. Parker is at the middle school at the open house, so he'll be here a little bit later. Okay, questions and announcements from the board? Okay. Jim?
Jim?
Yes.
I actually asked Jim to sit here, so I'm going to let him do most of the talking. It's a great pleasure to introduce one of our outstanding teachers at Londonderry High School, social studies teacher, Mr. Jim Choquette. And he has been honored with a great award and a great opportunity, and I'm going to have him explain it because he speaks better than I can on this. Mr. Choquette?
Добрый вечер. Moje imię Jim Choquette. Ja je historia po ekonomika wichtel po Londonderry Srednia Szkola. The reason I'm addressing you tonight, or at least a brief introduction, is because I'm attempting to learn Ukrainian. Last year, I applied for a program of American teachers of English, English as a second language, and social studies through the Department of State's Cultural Affairs and through an organization called IREX. IREX stands for the International Research and Exchange Community. Now, IREX basically has placed or is attempting to place American Teachers of Excellence, TEAs, in 10 countries of the former Soviet Union and South Asia. Of a pool of 1,000 applicants, they took 32, roughly 3 per country, 5 in some. Now, I applied as a European teacher, European history teacher and an economics teacher to go to the Ukraine. The opportunity there, the fact that I teach European history and it's a transitional economy would be wonderful. Last May, I heard that I had been accepted as one of the 36 teachers for this pilot program. So, they've linked me with what is known as Experimental School Number 10 in Berdichev, Ukraine. Now, Berdichev's about 10, basically, miles outside of Kiev. It's not far from basically the capital. It's a city of about 80,000 to 100,000, so in size it's not that much different than Manchester. Berdichev goes back to the 13 or 1400s, depending on what source you go to. I wouldn't recommend Wikipedia. But what's going to happen is I have the opportunity to work along with a Ukrainian teacher who right now is at the University of Huntsville in Alabama, has been brought there for 6 weeks, will be there till the first weekend of November, and that teacher will be basically learning best practices. Will be taking classes and interning in American schools. That teacher will be hitched up to the net, will be given technology as a gift by the American government and the Department of State, and we will correspond electronically. What's going to happen is they're going to fly me to the University of Huntsville the first weekend of November. I'm going to meet the Ukrainian teacher in person, and then we're going to try to decide what am I going to do when they fly me to the Ukraine next April to teach teachers. It's really going to be up to, the man's name is Alexander Ian-Kamensky, I believe, if I'm pronouncing it correct, and he's going to decide what I am going to do for them when I arrive. So first of all, I've been recognized as a teacher of excellence in the United States, and hopefully I will be able to use my expertise to help the teachers in Experimental School Number 10. It's got about 1,400 students ranging from K to 12, and it's a recent development in the Ukraine. It's basically a model school, and their hope is that if it does well, it'll be a hallmark for change in that country. So that is the award I have received from the Department of State and IREX. I do not have to learn Ukrainian, but I figured if I was to go there, I should at least be able to speak basic words. I'll be actually teaching teachers in English, which is pretty good.
Questions from the board? Dan?
Jim, why do they call it an experimental school?
I still have to talk to Alexander about that. My understanding from the paperwork that they submitted is that it's a recent development in the last 10 years, because since gaining independence, the Ukraine has gone through a lot of problems, both political, social, and economic. And the hope is that by modeling their education system on successful models in the United States, and changing the way they teach, integrating more technology, integrating more maths and sciences, and requiring actually the learning of English by all Ukrainian students, realizing that the world is getting smaller and economically they will need it. So it is really an English language push at Experimental School number 10.
And how long are you going to be there?
I will be there for 2 weeks.
Okay.
But there are opportunities in the future to expand the exchange and to continue to correspond electronically with the teacher there.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Tremendous. Steve?
Something you just said really piqued my interest. You said that they're going to look at successful models of teaching and instruction.
Correct.
And they're here in the U.S. at the public schools?
They're actually at the University of Alabama, which I don't know very much about the University of Alabama, except for the location of Space Camp is there. But they will basically be given opportunities to go out in model schools in the American South. They're going to be distributed through Alabama and Georgia just for a 3-week internship after they've taken extensive classes, basically 24/7 at the university.
And that would be in public schools?
It would be in public schools, yes.
That's my point.
Yes.
So, okay. Oftentimes, people talk about how bad our public schools are.
Well, they're a model, at least for the Ukraine and the 9 other countries that they're sending American teachers to.
So the standards are low. Okay. The 100% English and their students learning 100% English is interesting, too. I spent quite a bit of time in Singapore, and they have a similar law that everyone in Singapore must be taught English, and it's a 100% English-speaking country along with their language. They also make their students, or they make the businesses open the trade shows on Saturday, and students and families come to the trade shows and get to learn more. So I think it sounds like they're on the right track of opening things. Is there a, do you have a website that has more information about the program on it?
The information that is presently available is through the IREX website. It's irex.com, and it's the TEA program, the Teachers of Excellence. And the actual, it's the Eurasian South Asian Teaching Excellence and Achievement Program, because the 10 countries are ex-Soviet Union and South Asian.
Congratulations, have fun.
Well, thank you very much.
Mr. Clark? We're into his world now.
Reed Clark, heard him say that he was learning Croatian. And believe me, even if you go for 2 weeks, even if you go for a 3-day overnight, the more of the language of the country you are in that you can speak, the better they will treat you, the more at ease they will feel with you. So, thank you for learning.
I'm trying anyways.
Thank you.
Do poberčenia, or goodbye.
Congratulations. Jim.
Congratulations. Councilman Bovee, you had a question?
I did.
Marty Bovee, 3 Tinkham Lane. I had the honor and pleasure of doing a television show recently with the Attorney General. And Attorney General
She had a boy.
and I were discussing about internet predators and that type of thing. That's what the show is about. And they prepared a booklet. I don't know if you've seen it, Nate. Have you seen that little booklet yet?
Yes.
The one that they put out? Okay. One of my questions was, have we received them and,
Yes.
are we passing them out?
Yes. I think our due date is October 1. It's beginning of October. We're supposed to distribute them to the high school and middle school.
Not having a child in the school system, I haven't really, for a number of years now, I haven't really had the reason to ask the question, but it came up from the Attorney General. She asked me, and I didn't have an answer, so I would ask the school board. Do we have in our teachings of computer usage to the young kids as we teach them, do we have something within our curriculum, or should we have something in our curriculum dealing with protecting them from internet predators and that type of thing?
I'll grab Sue. But last couple of years, we have had through the Londonderry Police Department, Chris Childs ran programs for parents for it, and I think we even put it up on Leo 21. So we've done that, and I believe we've done some other things, Marty. Sue would be.
I was sure we did, but I said I would ask the question, and I'm asking it, for an answer. And She doesn't have to answer now, but at some point, if she should give some kind of an update so people know. Because I was pushing the fact that parents should get more involved. They should go to the internet site that the Attorney General has that gives a lot of information about this type of thing. There's also information there not just for students, older students too, and I'm talking about gaming and text messaging and all that whole new genre of communication that can be used by predators for a lot of different reasons. And my attention had been drawn to it totally by the Attorney General, but I thought I'd ask the question, and I'm sure we're doing fine with it, but I would just like to rest assure the parents that
Yes.
that we're doing it.
Yeah, Sue just came in.
Okay. Oh, sorry, you want me to re-ask that, Sue? I just did a show with the Attorney General, and we were discussing internet predators and that type of thing, and kids being taught or trained to use the computer properly and so forth. And learning to protect themselves, not give out information, that kind of thing. She asked me what if we were doing this in the school, and I didn't know, but I said I would promise to ask the question. So that's what prompted me today to ask the question. If you could just give me a...
Absolutely. We've done a number of things, and speaking of the Attorney General's office, they just produced a
That little booklet, yes.
publication, which has been delivered to Londonderry High School, Londonderry Middle School, I believe that the principals of those two schools are distributing those to parents during open houses. So some of them have already been distributed at the middle school. And accompanying that was a list prepared by the Department of Education of websites to help educate parents about these issues. In addition, at the school level, we certainly, anytime we're working with kids in that kind of environment, remind them of the importance of staying safe. We also have a number of precautions in place. For example, at the elementary level, we subscribe to a portal service called NetTrekker, which ensures that as our kids make entree into the web, that they are going through a service where all the websites they visit have been vetted by educators. So we have an assurance that through that service, we're providing them with good resources that have been looked at by educators and that are aligned with our curriculum. At the middle and high school level, we allow the students a little more freedom in terms of accessing information, but each student at those levels signs an acceptable use policy that details what our expectations are, forms of netiquette, what the consequences are if they don't observe those rules and regulations, and I think most of our kids understand that we will follow through. Additionally, we have worked with our SRO officers, have now a web page at the district site, and have at the parent resources have provided a number of links to sources that the school resource officers have determined help parents make good decisions about using internet resources at home. We have produced for Channel 21 a program on savvy surfing that was hosted by Vicki Good, one of our high school librarians, about how to best use the internet, how to be a savvy surfer. We, in our parent and student handbooks, have information about all of these things. Again, we're going to be revising our acceptable use policy, and we're just discussing it today. Hope to have it to the board in October timeframe to begin to address some of the Web 2.0 technologies, probably what the Attorney General's office is concerned about, the more participatory things like blogs and wikis and
gaming issues now.
those
Yeah.
things. The high school with Mr. Blunt has just, in terms of accessing online resources, we have online textbooks. At the high school level, in many instances, the students are required to sign on and provide a web address. So we have notified every parent in that instance and asked their permission, their understanding that a student is identifying themselves to a third party. Even though we have vetted the third party, we want to make sure that parents understand students are giving identifiable information. So we're trying to keep up with this ever-changing dynamic landscape as best we can, but I think we're taking a number of reasonable precautions. We can always do more because there's always more to do, but those are some of the things that we're doing off the top of my.
I was sure that it was the case, but I'm glad that it was mentioned anyway. But the number one thing, I guess, is not just for students. I mean, most of the kids know more than any of us will ever know how to get on their own language, the whole 9 yards. But the number one thing, I guess, is for parents, especially the younger ones, to learn, if they don't know how, to put on the protections that you have at the school on their own computers. And if they don't know how, they can get
Yes.
that help. Somebody can help them do
Our
that.
SRO officers have some really excellent links, and again, if the parents would go to our website, www.londonderry.org, they can find some, right at the district's homepage, on the left-hand side, there's a link to the SRO's page, and from that to the Parent Resource Center with a number of excellent links that they have encouraged us to make sure we know about.
Thank you, Sue. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Steve?
Marty, when did you tape the show?
2 weeks ago.
Okay,
It's
'cause
showing now.
Yeah, it's playing now.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know if everyone caught it when you sat down. I just want to make sure everybody knows, if you catch the show, you'll notice the Attorney General is rather with child. And she gave birth today to a 7-pound, 11-ounce boy.
Right.
So, and everybody's great.
Thank you.
So, but maybe we'll rerun our Savvy Surfing with the Savvy
Yeah,
Surfing.
it'll probably go good
program.
with his,
Would be a nice bookend to
Yeah.
that, so we'll see if we can get that on the air.
Thank
again.
you, Sue.
you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for bailing me out.
Okay. Any other questions and announcements?
just going back to the internet.
Yeah.
I can do that now if you like.
Okay.
I was going to do it at the liaison reports, but Nate just gave me the pointy pen. The press has in their hands a order from the Supreme Court, which just came out yesterday. And before I read what that order is, let me give a brief synopsis of how we got to this order. In September of last year, we won our case against the state, and 616, House Bill 616 was found unconstitutional. The court mandated that the state go and they define inadequate education, they cost out inadequate education, they fund inadequate education, and they hold themselves accountable. And they do so by the end of June 2007. They defined inadequate education. We worked with them on that. We worked with the Attorney General's office, and our attorneys worked with them to make sure that we were comfortable with their definition and that there was no wiggle room for them to get out of it. As a matter of fact, I think Nate and I agree they were a little more aggressive than we thought they needed to be. They added kindergarten at the bottom. They put a stake in the sand and said that they would cost out inadequate education by February. Based on those items, and the Supreme Court then asked us in July, on July 20th, if we would give them which direction we would like to go. Would we like to go back to Superior Court and work on this problem, or would we like to drop the case? And they asked the same question of the state. We spent a lot of time looking at it and made the decision that since the state had made a good faith effort at solving school funding by defining it before the end of June, by saying they would cost it out before February 1st, we were comfortable that they were on the right track and they would continue to fund it and then hold themselves accountable within the year. So we filed papers that said that. Following that, the state filed papers after they had a chance to review what we said. And they said that they defined inadequate education, they will cost it out by February 1st, but that's all they're going to do right now. So we filed again, and this time we told the court, no, that's not acceptable. We need to have a date, and that date needs to be the end of June, that they cost this out and fund it and hold themselves accountable. The Supreme Court reviewed all of the documents and yesterday came back with a document which surprised me. They indicated they've considered all of the documents that we all submitted, and they concluded that they are going to stay the case until July 1st, 2008. And what that means is they're going to keep the case in their hands. They're not going to send us down to Superior Court to work on the problem. They're not going to let us drop the case. They still believe that it needs to be in their control. It says that any party can come back and show good cause to lift this stay, but it's a pretty simple order. And when they asked us if we would go to Superior Court to work on the problem or would we drop it, I never expected, when they read all the documents that we submitted, that they would conclude, gee, we better hold on to this a little bit longer. We can only hope that what they're saying here is that, yes, this should be costed out, it should be funded, and should be held accountable before the end of June. Presently, we're working with our attorneys to have communications with the Secretary of State, with the attorneys for the House Speaker and the Senate President, and our hope is that we'll be able to clarify with them what their intent is. And we really would like to know their intentions. We don't want to end up at the end of June and find out their intentions were not honorable. And Nate will have some further information on the study team.
Right. There's what is called a Legislative Oversight Committee. They've basically scheduled meetings almost every Monday from going back 2 weeks through January. Their first meeting was an organizational meeting. Their second meeting, they received information on various costing out methodologies based on the work of Rebel. He is a gentleman who's done a lot of research on different methods or methodologies for coming up with adequacy figures. There basically are 5 methods for costing out. One is called professional judgment. Second is called expert judgment studies. Third is called successful school district studies. Fourth is called cost function studies. And the fifth is legislative cost analysis. There are pros and cons that relate to each one of these particular methodologies used. In discussion, and they received that information and explanation of it, not this past Monday, but the Monday before. This Monday, yesterday, they heard information from Sally Fellows, who works for the Department of Ed, on what types of data, cost data, the state has and in what form it has, and also from the LAB, the Legislative, basically, Office of Budget, both of whom also said they'd be ready, willing, and able to provide whatever data or financial information the state needed, depending upon what the framework was and how they were going to go about it. The committee, the Oversight Committee, then had a discussion as to which methodology they wanted to use. Though it wasn't a unanimous vote, they came down with the idea that they would like to use the legislative cost analysis method with possibly some hint or sprinkling of successful schools or some ideas in there. And let me explain what legislative cost analysis is. In summary, basically, it's in response to court orders requiring reform of their educational finance system. Several states have undertaken cost analysis that do not conform to any of the 4 professionally established methodologies. For example, in Washington, the legislature uses the average statewide cost of educating the normal range ability student as its standard, defines the cost of a basic education by reference to ratios of teachers and other employees per 1,000 students in accordance with the state salary scale. So there's a variety of ways within the legislative cost analysis, if you want, that they can come up with. Now, this would have to be predicated on the definition of adequacy that was adopted by the legislature towards the end of last spring. That's where they are now. Next Monday, they will be hearing from members of the public who have an opportunity to testify and give their ideas on how they should go about costing out an adequate education. And then they're going to move on from that point and work their way through. So we'll see what happens. It'll be our intent to go up Monday and offer our 2 cents with some ideas or suggestions they might want to incorporate in their study. There was, as I mentioned, the vote wasn't unanimous. There was some discussion as to whether or not the successful schools model should be included or components of that. Members of the committee went back and forth on it, and a majority vote came to the legislative cost analysis, but who knows what in fact will wind up transpiring, what additional inputs they'll be looking. The question is always whether it's going to be input only or input or output based or a combination of both. So we'll have to see what happens as they move through. And my guess is they'll have a number of people coming up to offer their 2 cents regarding the methodology that should be used and what component should be included in the costing. So that's where we are at this point. So we're trying to keep our finger on it, and we'll participate as much as we can.
Okay. Any questions on that? Okay, seeing none. Just want to remind the community that on Saturday, September 22nd, from 12 o'clock to 4 o'clock at the Moose Hill School, they're going to have Londonderry Family Safety Day. That will include car seat inspections, watch out for blind spots, tractor trailer, meet Vinnie and Larry crash dummies, participate in CHIP, Child ID program, experience the Smokehouse trailer. My understanding that's a brand-new trailer that Salem is bringing up for us. Medical screenings by the Elliott Medical Center and the Parkland Hospital. They will have hot dogs and hamburgers sponsored by the Friends of Music, and they will have face painting by the YMCA and a life-size operation game by Elliott Hospital. So that is this Saturday from 12 to noon at the Moose Hill School. Sounds like a fun time. It looks like it's always been very successful. The biggest thing is the car seats. Unfortunately, the number that was presented last night at the council meeting is, I think, something like 85% of the car seats are installed incorrectly still. So it's a good time to go down there and just figure out the right way of putting it in. Thank you. Meetings. Our next meeting is October 2nd at 7 o'clock here in the conference room, and then October 16th, again at 7 o'clock here in the conference room. May I have a motion on the consent agenda?
Make a motion to move the consent agenda with the minutes as edited.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 3-0. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry to bother you again, but there's something else, another issue that I meant to bring up, but it has to do with cable. Marty Bovey again, 3 Tinkham Lane. Last night, Ron, you may have heard me discuss it, and this is a different forum with a different viewing audience, but it still, I think, affects the school board, especially Leo 21 and a lot of others. I mentioned last night that the FCC is in a process, again, of looking at changing the rules in the playing field, and that there's a possibility that if they pass these, that cable companies can come in and renegotiate what they provide, fees and so forth, which could affect, I'm not blowing any, I'm not crying wolf here, but we need to do something in regards to get this stopped. It could affect what we now produce here in town, what we now use, and the fees we use for providing, broadcasting this, for example, cable casting this, and all government channels and so forth, the Leo 21, you name it. I asked the town manager to prepare a memo for us to sign as a council to send out to the congressional delegation plus the FCC board, filing our protest to that approach. A quick history. A year and a half ago or so, they tried to pass a bill in Congress that was doing something similar to this. It was defeated, and Congress never passed it. The FCC went ahead and implemented part of it anyway, So they just ignored Congress. Congress isn't backing this either, but the FCC is proceeding with it. They're being pushed by the cable companies who want a bigger piece of the pie, obviously, and want to pay less and give less. Now, I don't know about you, and I'm not trying to wrap cable and internet access and phone service all in one shot, but personally, without mentioning names, I got an increase in my cable bill, and I didn't see any increase in service. I think they're already making enough money, and I hate to see them take away something that we have come to depend on as a community, a communicative system that we have for government, school, public access. And I would just encourage you, if you would think about possibly joining us with sending a letter opposing that. And if you need more information, I could certainly get it. I don't know if Sue has already seen it or not. Okay, but I would encourage you, if you could, to think about possibly sending a letter also. Any support in trying to get this defeated would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you. So,
If you don't have the answer to the question, Sue, I don't need it right now, but how much, my question is, how much funding do we get from Adelphia Cable Comcast, the next cable company that buys them? How much funding, I'm just looking at a school, a slice of school. How much funding do we get for Leo 21? Thanks.
Nate, can you get the information from Dave Karen and put something together for us?
Sure.
Thank you.
I just want to make it clear, I may or may not support it on a school slice based on the answer to the question I just asked Sue.
Well, we'll get all the information and find out what it is, and then we'll see where we want to go with it. Okay. Student council report.
Parents' night is this Thursday, and student council members will be attending to help guide our parents around the building. And prior to that, we are presenting the teachers with the annual teacher supper as kind of a thank you and let's have a good year. The welcome back dance is this Saturday night at 7, given by the student council. And we're hoping everyone comes and has a good time. And we have 12 members of the student council signed up to be hostages in October for the Londonderry Police Department training. And we announced that, and everyone was very excited. And it was a race to sign up. And Spirit Week starts next week to get ready for the MacPlac Games. And it starts on Monday. And then there's a pep rally on Friday. Activities for during the week includes college t-shirt and band t-shirt day, toga day, pajama day, Disney and Cartoon Day, and Lancer Spirit Day. And the Londonderry football team won 31-14 against Salem last Friday night. It was very impressive.
Excellent. Pat?
Thank you. Parents' nights at the elementary schools and the middle school are underway and have been very well attended, and as Lisa said, the high schools will be held this Thursday evening. Art educator Marcia Connors reports that the students, staff, and parents are very excited to know that South School has an art room this year. Many parents stop by during their open houses to see the art room and express their happiness and their children's happiness for this space. The Drama Club at South School will begin their year on Thursday. Facilitators for this group are Deanna Poulin and Joan Laurenti. Kindergarten and elementary teachers have been working with the reading specialist to implement the new core reading program. Things are beginning to fall into place, but at this point, time is the most critical factor. There just isn't enough of it in the day. But I'm sure that will all work itself out over the next few weeks. And teachers will meet tomorrow during the early release afternoon with representatives of Scott Forsman to discuss the implementation process. Also during early release time tomorrow, elementary special education teachers and some of the high school sped teachers will have some number worlds training, which is the new math program they're implementing. Elementary special ed assistants will have a workshop on supporting students with disabilities at recess time. The LMS Wellness Education Program will be for all LMS staff, and the LHS staff will be doing a lot of their curriculum work. Teachers and students throughout the district are also preparing for the NECAP testing, which will begin the first week of October. LMS art teacher Brandon Stumpf reports that the Cyclones are doing yet another interdisciplinary unit, this time centered on their new ecology unit in science. With the help of Peggy Fox and the special curriculum department, students will be creating short educational children's stories that will be turned into pop-up books in his class. Students will be writing poetry about the ecosystems and habits of a particular bug. And the result should be some very creative and educational pieces that the students can use to demonstrate the knowledge they have gained from this new unit. As I said, Wellness Day at the middle school is tomorrow, the 19th, and they're ready to go. Board members are invited to stop by to observe in the morning or participate in the afternoon. Many of the clubs at LMS are up and running. They've had a huge attendance this year due to the success of their club fair held at the 6th grade open house. 7th grade parent night was well attended, and they had presentations by Mr. Corey and Mrs. Dyer, and the PE department and music department, and the parents visited with foreign language, special curriculum, and reading teachers in the 6th and 7th grade pod areas. They then attended a team event, meeting with the team teachers, and even winning prizes. So that's one way to draw the parents in, that's great. LHS teacher Tom Martinson is very pleased to see enrollment in the AP English up this year. Enrollment went from 14 students to 90. Sandy Flynn from LHS is heading up the running of the new school store. T-shirts, water bottles, and other Lancer items will be available, and I guess a contest is underway to choose a name for the store. 5th graders from the 3 elementary schools are preparing for the annual 1-mile run at the high school. The cross-country meet will be held on October 2nd at 4 p.m. And kindergarten students from Moose Hill have ventured out on their first field trip by going apple picking. No buses, and they didn't even have to cross the street. So that was great. Thank you.
Okay, school board reports?
Well, my dance card is filling up. It was a nice summer. And most of my sessions seem to be during the day, which is fine, because I'm in the community and available for that. And I appreciate the email reminders from the staff that make sure I go to those. Something that Lisa brought up, which came up on our school tours, and that is the activities of the police in our schools. I know that over the last month or so, there's been quite a bit of people in talk radio, people screaming on talk radio about the issue of safety in the schools and being sure that we're safe from terror in the schools. I think the fact that they had their SWAT training session in the middle school during the summer and that they're doing a live exercise here shortly is absolutely tremendous, and I think we ought to make sure that Chief Ryan knows how pleased we are that he's doing this. I remember a time that the police department wanted to relocate from this part of town because they were concerned that if they brought criminals here and the criminals got away, they would be a danger to the schools. Well, frankly, I can't imagine any better detriment than having the police department right here. People have to drive by it to get to our schools, so I think it's a good thing that they're keeping that up. Thanks.
Okay, a couple of meetings. We had the tech meeting the other evening, and we're setting our goals for our next year of what we're going to accomplish, and that was going very well. We also spoke about at the tech meeting, we had our new IT director there. Sean Kors was there, so he is on board now. He's been introduced into the community, and that'll make a significant difference in what we're doing. We welcome him aboard. Next tech committee is next Tuesday. Okay. Planning board, they had a public hearing on the CIP plan, and we'll be talking about that in a little while. Town council meeting. Last night, they had a long discussion on the ethics committee. They had the 2 representatives from Dumbarton who came in to talk about it and how it's worked well in their community. I think the most important issue that they brought up here, that my impression was that put a lot of the councilors at ease, was that any complaint that came forward needed to have a name associated with it with a specific charge. It wasn't a hand grenade that was just thrown to say someone did something wrong. It was that I, Ronald Campo, are saying that so-and-so did something wrong under section such and such of the code, and they would address a specific issue. I don't know where the council's going with it, but it's an issue that they'll be bringing up, I think, at one of the future meetings in a month or so to see if they want to form a committee and bring it to the voters. It probably would not, it would definitely not be brought this March, but the following March to the voters, if they decide to go there. But it was an interesting and an eye-opening discussion on it. It was, again, a town-side ethics committee, their school district were following their rules that they have in their policies and procedures. Yes?
The planning board, can I just touch on something
Sure.
there? I know that I watched the planning board. George was in attendance for the entire planning board, but as you heard, he's out of town today. Something that we should just keep our eye on, there was talk of a development along Route 93 at Exit 5. And Elmer Pease was proposing to develop 44 acres there. They were looking to slice it down the middle, and next to the highway, next to the ramp, would be commercial development close to the Route 93, right on Route 93. And then there would be a buffer, and on the other side of that, he would have a mix of workforce housing units and also elderly housing units. There was quite a bit of conversation on it from the abutters, from people in the neighborhood, about how they didn't want that change. The area is presently zoned Agricultural 1. So I'd like to talk a little bit about it from a school board side now. If it remains Agricultural 1, there's 44 acres there. So we're looking at the possibility of approximately 38 homes that would go in there if they were 1 acre lots. That area is serviced by sewer, so if the developer were to put in sewage, and I checked this with the planning department, if the developer were to put in sewage, they would get 0.8 homes per acre, because they would be able to have a higher density, because they don't have to worry about the leach fields. The other options under the Agricultural 1 would be have it entirely elderly housing, which wouldn't affect the school district. But that cap is, we're creeping nearer to that cap where we can have the maximum number. So I see that's something we should pay attention to. The farmland will not remain farmland forever. The people that own the farmland want to sell it. That looked very clear the other night. And if it's developed, and if it were to be developed in high-density homes, we could be looking at 55 three-bedroom homes in that area. Now, the town's figures on that is there's 1.2 children in a three-bedroom home. But as we all know, in Londonderry and new communities, we do tend to get a few more children. And seeing as we just built out North School, and it's not tight now, but it's doesn't have a lot of extra space, this particular development could affect us. Thanks.
Okay. Nate, do you want to go to, is Andy going to be showing up?
Yeah,
a little
Andy's
bit?
becoming, so I would like to suggest that maybe we jump to the CIP.
Okay. Again, excuse me, on the CIP plan, what we're doing again is taking a look at it, and the priorities that were presented in the meeting was the priority 1 on this was that's urgent and cannot be delayed is the fire station up at North Station, for the replacement of that fire station up there. And if they had some pretty impressive pictures on what was wrong with the fire station there. And it looks like there's been years that we should have been doing something on it, and we did not. And that looks like it'll be going on to the ballot. The planning board has got a public hearing on the October 12th, I believe it is, Wednesday. And these items will be coming up. The issue that we came up is South School renovations, and that stood exactly where we expected to be put on the ballot next year. What we have there is the $5.5 million cost. And as we start getting into this cost, again, we talk about some of the stuff that we have. And this week, or a couple of days ago, we got a letter, September 7th, from the Commissioner of Education. And basically, he talked about the fire marshal here. And he says, in recent years, the state fire marshal, with full support of the Department of Education, has placed restrictions on the use of public school buildings in 4 different districts and 1 private school. Many of the schools have been cited for multiple safety violations by local fire departments. The purpose of this memorandum is to address the issues of building safety. And they go on to talk about safety of the children must be the highest priority for the use of the school's resources. A lot of our buildings, and Nate, I'm going to ask Nate to talk about this, is our buildings are under a waiver in many cases because we do not meet current fire codes. And Nate, you want to take on from where we are?
I'll let Peter address it.
The second half of the waiver is that we agreed that when we do substantial improvements to the building, at that time, we would bring the building up to all the current code standards. And in the case of South School, the 2 issues that have come up a couple times is the fire road that runs around the entire building, and the sprinklers in the as part of the $5.5 million project. And so, as Ron has alluded to, the waiver, as part of the improvements of South School, we would be required as part of the waiver, and if you want to call it an agreement with the fire department, that we would bring, those are the 2 major ones that we would bring up to code when we do replacing the portables and any other interior renovations that we may or may not choose, but certainly those 2 would be required. I think that question's come up a couple times. So that's the reason why those 2 particular projects or issues are part of whatever project we do at South School, whether it's just simply replacing portable for portable classrooms or permanent construction or doing some of the interior renovations. Those 2 issues or problems have to be solved no matter what we do down there.
So I just wanted to make the public aware that the safety issues would be addressed in this building. We're required to do it by RSA 153, 155, and 155 alpha. Those give the authority to municipal code enforcement officers to implement the life safety codes. And again, as we're under a waiver, if you do nothing at the building and you decide not to do anything, these issues are going to come up, and we're going to have to address them as part of our budgetary process to resolve them. We've been moving along with these issues as we've gone along. As we did North School, we put the road around, we put the sprinklers in. As we did the middle school, we did the same thing. As we did the high school renovations, we had the road around there, but we sprinkled the whole building.
And fire alarm.
And the fire alarm systems. So there's several of these codes that we continuously do, and we're required to do by state law. And again, we're talking about the safety of the children and a state law that we need to follow on that. So that's the reason why the safety issues are in the building permit. Steve?
Coincidental, just to help defray any conspiracy theories here. Coincidental, after the capital improvement plan meeting, the next morning, I think, we got an email from the Commissioner of Education indicating that this is something that we should take a look at. Not sent to us, but sent to every district in the state of New Hampshire. And there was a number in there of districts that were not in compliance. 16?
Yes.
I think it was 16. 16 districts that are not in compliance, and we happen to be one of them that are functioning on waivers. So this isn't something we went and pulled out. It was something that showed up on our doorstep, unexpected, coincidentally, at the same time we're looking at South School.
It's also, I mean, safety of the kids and the staff always come first, but also part of it is the protection of community assets. I mean, something would happen, you know, there's a lot of money in our buildings, whether it be just the brick and mortar or the contents inside the buildings, too.
And while he's coming up, just a fireman's fact, sprinklers aren't for the children. Sprinklers are for the building, just so everyone gets that straight.
Jay Hooley, 24 West Yellowstone Drive, Budget Committee. Is South School the only waiver that we now function under?
No, it's
No.
not. We have, Matthew Thornton does not have sprinklers in it. So that would be something that we'll be putting in our long-range plan, since we have no addition to,
Schedules.
to do it. So we would be putting that somewhere down the road as we continue on this process to complete the whole evolution.
I think we had it in 2 years ago, and we needed the money for roofs.
Well, no, if I remember correctly, one of when we talked about doing North School, and then one of the issues to come up with was when we did South, we would include sprinklers in Matthew Thornton as part of the whole project, and I don't know if, we're not quite there yet. That's where I remember sprinklers coming up as.
Right, when we had the two projects together.
Yes.
The third part was the sprinklers at
At Matthew
Matthew Thornton. When we had, and when we split them up, we looked at splitting them up completely.
Would that be a CIP issue? To bring that up to code or no?
Not for a sprinkler system per se. I don't think that
Over
would
maintenance.
CIP.
Maintenance would probably be coming out, if we did it in the budget part, probably a couple years in the maintenance trust account.
Okay, just curious if the email might be sort of a hint that we
Yeah,
might elevate that and where we consider it in the mix of all things.
Would
Give
you
you- give
send
you-
a copy of that to the budget,
Sure.
that email?
I've got a copy of this one here, the letter.
Is that the one from Lionel? Sure.
Yeah.
I've got a copy.
I think the most graphic example, and I know only too well because it's in my wife's school district, Somersworth almost was not able to open up one of their elementary schools this fall because they had been told previously that there were some fire code issues related mainly to stairwells and a number of other items, and their city council failed to allocate the funds for it, and the fire marshal came and said, too bad, you can't open. You can't use the second and third floors. And so they wound up having to rush and get portable classrooms so they could house those students. So, you know,
Also, part of the South School, as we start speaking of South School, we talk about, and I'm not going to go into it right now because Brian's got a much better presentation of this, is people have come up and says, why do we really need the classrooms at South School? We have a declining population, and that's one of the issues that we look at, and that goes back to Nate's presentation on moving children around. And besides the class sizes that would go up close to between 27 and 30 throughout the district if we took away those classrooms, there's an additional cost to the community in special ed classes that would disappear from the district, that children would be outplaced, and Brian will be talking about that shortly. And I thought he did a good job on that. And the other part of this whole process that comes up is, I was used to having 30 children in the classroom, and why do we need all these smaller rooms? Brian will also address that this evening, talking about why do we have smaller rooms now, when all of us went to schools, all we remember were the big classrooms, the row of desks. What has changed in that period of time that's made that a necessity? So Brian will address those two issues a little bit later on in the presentation. Couple of the other discussions that went on.
Before we, just want to remind everybody that, you know, we all know this, but some don't, that South School is proposed to be a 5.5 20-year bond issue. So obviously, over a period of 20 years, the community would pay X amount, with hopefully 30% of the majority of the cost, since it'll be new construction, but that's to be determined later. I guess there was a discussion that some people thought maybe we're going to pay the whole 5.5 in the next fiscal year.
And that's a very good point. And I think as we start looking at Brian's numbers as he's starting to do it, in the year of the bond, and on the $5.5 million bond, as we start looking at that, when you take the state reimbursement out, the cost per year is approximately $450,000 a year. It varies as you go along, then you pay a little bit more in the first few years, and as you go down, it drops down. It goes from $467,500 down to $206,000, and that's the net of it. You don't pay a bond, very good point, all $5.5 million in the first year. It's divided over 20 equal payments of principal, and the interest is what goes down on that. So that's the other part of the bond issue.
So,
Yes.
but then another number, and I'm just doing this very roughly in my head. If we get 30%, I'm not gonna look at the debt table, but if we get 30% from the state, then this building really doesn't cost us $5.5 million. It costs us $4 million.
That's correct.
All said and done.
Right. But
Right.
and I understand we have to be careful about how we present it, but the reality is, this $5.5 million project,
Right.
the fees are offset,
Right.
bringing the price down for Londonderry's taxpayers to $4 million.
Plus interest.
Okay.
Okay. As we went along in the project here, a couple of the other issues were road construction, and one of the biggest items that came up was the money for the road improvement and the passage of a bond, or recommending of a bond for $1.5 million for the road works that we're doing. There's also in this plan priority twos, and not all these are in this 1 year. It's the work on the highway garage improvements, the intersection of 28 and 128. And again, some of these things are, we're driven by the state. If we want to do this work right now, we have to meet with the state's schedule on the work. And the biggest one on here, and it's for economic development and commercial development up at the airport, is the Pettingale Road upgrade, which is $14 million. That is out about 3 or 4 years, but it opens up something like 600 acres up at the airport. That will be significant amounts of work, and they're expecting to develop into 3.6 million square feet of commercial and industrial development up there. So those are a couple of the major items that they're looking at on here. The biggest issue that we're speaking about now is this year, it looks like the town, again, it hasn't gone to the council yet, will be proposing the fire department at the north end of town and the school district, which is moving along here, but we do not have a final cost on. That's in the process now, is the South School building. Questions? Comments? Okay. Next item on the agenda, and I'm going to change the agenda around a little bit, I apologize, but since we're talking about this, is the supplemental needs for the special education. Brian?
Good evening. What I tried to capture here was come up with some answers to some very specific questions relative to space needs at the elementary level for special education. Question, why do we need small classroom space? I think the board is pretty aware that over the last 4 years, we've had a pretty significant increase in the number of areas where we have been providing remedial-based instruction to students who are below grade level or maybe struggling with either math, reading, or written language. I tried to capture here the volume that we're talking about in terms of how many different kids and how many different kinds of groups we have going on throughout the school day to provide these services, and I would say you're aware of our 3-tier reading model, to any students who struggle. So sort of the philosophical shift being, if you struggle in reading, we're going to have some supplemental supports to help you get the instruction you need and hopefully get your reading back up towards grade level. I did capture in here, I know there's a lot of charts, I hope it wasn't sort of too much information, but I wanted to make sure I at least captured what I thought you folks were looking for. The second, I think, big important question that I was asked is what would be the impact of losing our district-wide special education programs at the elementary level? In addition to significantly shifting our philosophical commitment to providing services to students in our local schools, there would be a significant cost impact. Absent the appropriate space to provide intensive services we currently offer, students would need to be placed in costly out-of-district special education programs. Additionally, we would need to provide transportation to and from these programs, which is also extremely costly. What I used was basically straight-line numbers based on numbers that we opened school with and broke out our three sort of primary elementary level special education programs that we have. We have our Friends 2 program, which you'll be hearing a little more about from me tonight, along with Cheryl, our BAS program, which Matthew Thornton calls PALS, and our Program for Success. These three programs are targeted at three different populations, but you can see if you look at the third page of my memo, the number of kids that we're talking about within these programs, I extended it out through FY11. And again, these numbers could move, they can shift. We could have 3 or 4 kids move in next week. We could have kids move out. They tend to be a little fluid, but I at least wanted to have a sense of, I'm using actual numbers for these projections. What I did was, for each program, Friends 2, BAS, and PFS, I broke it out by each fiscal year from FY08 through FY11, and essentially did what would be kind of a standard out-of-district placement cost for each one of those programs. So for example, Friends 2 would be around $60,000 per student. The BAS program would be around $40,000 per student, and a PFS type of placement would be around $37,000 per student. I further went in to factor the cost of transportation into these programs. Now, I indicated here that transportation would cost approximately $60,000 per program annually, with about a 5% annual increase. This is a conservative estimate, as transportation is predicated on placement. So what that can end up meaning is transportation could cost $60,000 for each of those groups, but it could cost twice that. So some of these, depending on availability of programs, placements, et cetera, if I was in the business of placing those kids, the transportation costs could be very significant. I would also just say that we do utilize ride sharing as part of our out-of-district runs if we have them, and we do not have a fuel escalation clause in our contract, but still, the costs are very expensive. So what I did then is I took the per program costs, including transportation, and then I took the student numbers that we have in terms of actual known students that we have, and I went out through FY11. And for each one of those programs, I did sort of a cost projection of what the impact would be to lose those special education programs. So for example, FY08, if you took those three programs with the transportation, you're talking $1.127, $1,127,000. So then you might say, okay, well, what about the cost to run the programs? I then took the number of teachers and the number of teaching assistants and used actual costs to cost out these programs based on the enrollment currently and anticipated, and then compared them. The last chart is the cost avoidance, which compares what it would cost you if we didn't have the space to provide these services to kids here in Londonderry versus what the staffing costs are for each of those programs, and came up with what the difference is per year.
So for the public, Brian, if you go from the net cost, if you go from fiscal year '08 through fiscal year '11 with your assumptions on students, the net cost, in other words, what it would cost us to send the youngsters out of district, as well as transporting them, minus the cost for staffing, would be a cumulative total cost avoidance of $4,165,091 from FY08 through FY11.
Correct.
And so, for instance, for FY08, which is the current year we're in, by running the programs in-house, we have a cost avoidance of $721,929. For next year, if the numbers stay as we've projected, It's a savings of $911,104. FY '10 would be $1,098,546, and FY '11, $1,433,512, for a cumulative cost avoidance of $4,165,000, which is, and if you carry it out a fifth year, that is basically what we're looking at for the cost of, actually, more than what the cost would be for South School.
You have to add in the cost of the money.
Pardon?
You gotta add in the cost of the money. You still, the 5.5 million.
Right.
Even, and if you bring it back to my 4 million.
Right.
You still have the cost of
Yes,
Yes.
getting the money.
absolutely.
So essentially, I was attempting to answer those pretty specific questions in terms of what would be the impact and what sort of some of this additional information is relative to space.
So, yeah, just to pick up on Steve's point, if you ran a 20-year note, and what we're talking with the state reimbursement, the total cost would be, for South School, would be about $7,175,000. So within 8 years, or actually 7.5 years, you recoup, in a sense, all that cost, the cost avoidance, by having, so in less than half the time, you are, because we've got the space and the reconfigure, we are able to have a cost avoidance that supersedes what it would cost to put on the classrooms and do the reconfiguration in South School. So if you're looking at cost benefit and payback, so for instance, when Chuck always talks about facility stuff, and if we put in these kinds of light bulbs, or we put in this kind of heating system, what's the payback, how many years on payback? Here, it's basically the same thing. Your payback is 8 years. Not bad.
Again, the point here really is, the fact is, the savings each year would equal the bond payments and more.
Right.
I mean, in simple terms, if we did nothing, we would be paying more as a district in our O&M operating budget to have these children at a district in what I consider not as good quality educational facility and program as we can run in town, and we'd be paying more. And I think that's the point that I'd like people to leave here, is if we eliminated these programs, it would cost the taxpayers more money than putting the same classrooms, and we won't talk portables or brick and mortar, putting those classrooms back. Those 8 classrooms are needed at South School in order to maintain the special ed programs in the Londonderry middle schools. That's the point we're saying. Putting those portables or putting the brick and mortar back there is a cost-effective method for the residents of Londonderry. And that's what this exercise was supposed to show.
Absolutely.
Dan?
Thank you, Brian. Couple points that I'd like to make or ask. There is no subjectivity built into this because these are known children today.
Correct.
And we've talked about this on a number of occasions. Our feeder program, the 3 and 4 program, the LEAP, we're seeing more and more students with these particular needs. So if you want to carry this out over 20 years, and I'm not asking you to guess how many children, but unfortunately the statistics, or the run rate, if you want to call it that we've been seeing, is it's going to be more than this limited number of 5 to 6 to 7 to 8 to 9 to 11 children. And I guess when I look at space, I don't look at child per classroom. I look at the services that we can provide those individual children and the programs that we continuously enhance in this district, and not eliminating the services from our district and outsourcing it. And that's what you were requested to do, and you did a great job at that. But more importantly is, how do you really put a cost on space allotment per child with these type of needs or these type programs? Because who the heck knows in 7 years what new services, or what either state mandated or what we choose to do to further enhance these children's educations we may put in. If we go back and look 10 years ago and look what we're doing today versus over a life of a bond, to Ron's point, if we want to talk over 20 years and we have the space that the community gives us. To me, it gives us a plethora of opportunity to service children's needs in different fashions that we may not be doing today. Not that, you know what I'm saying?
I absolutely do.
I
and-
just can't imagine what we'll be doing in 7 years, but this district's always strived to provide continued growth for these children. So I just hate to limit conversation to 3 to 4 years, because if we're talking space, it's not a short-term fix. In my mind, it's a long-term opportunity. So that's how I perceive this. And I can't answer my own question. I simply don't know what we'll be doing in 7 years or 8 years, but I assume we'll be doing more than we do today.
Well, I think it's fair to
And
say.
that's not bad.
The kids that we're servicing now in the LEAP program and at the early elementary grades are more intensive kids than we have seen historically. In addition to increased numbers, the severity of kids and the extent of their disabilities and the amount of programs that they require continues to increase.
So, Ron, your point's great, 20 years. It's, don't just focus on 3 years or 4 years.
No, all I'm saying is that the cost of the services will pay back the bond over a period of time, no
Oh.
matter which option we take.
I have a question for you, but something you said just triggered another item. I talked earlier tonight about, a new housing project with potential of 1.2 children. And we know a child in this school district is about $8,000. So, that's $8,500, $9,000 on a house that probably pays $7,000 in taxes. So it's a net loss for every house that gets built. What if the 1.2 children in that house are special needs? What's the range of that cost for the district?
Well, sort of the short end of that would be students who had sort of some mild needs or needed some extra instruction, but it could be an impact of, I know it sounds catastrophic to say numbers like this, but some kids in other districts are receiving services that are over $200,000 a year for one child. So I think there's a pretty significant range relative to what the actual sort of operational costs are to provide services to kids. But certainly the more kids you have who have intensive needs like that, it is cost effective to have your own in-district programs. And I think to Ron's point, that you do a better job. You maintain the quality, you make sure that you have appropriate services for these children, and the cost for out-of-district transportation, just in terms of what it is now and what it will continue to do, is the costs are catastrophic. Just the per-day rate of the transporting these kids to other places is through the roof.
That brings it back to the question I was going to ask, which is, in your model, in your model where we send these students out, did you take into account the increasing costs over time?
I did. I used a 5% increase in the transportation cost, and I used a 5% increase in tuition. The tuition actually ends up being somewhere between 4 and 6.5. The Department of Ed sets the tuition for these programs, but on average, they do go up about 5% every year. And the transportation, I just kept it the same and I used an annual increase. I also used an annual increase in the cost of the staff. So I used, again, I just continued to use an increase in the staff for, benefits and salary increases.
Dan, you had another question?
Brian, what's the longest in duration length a child can be on transporting to another school on a daily basis?
I don't actually believe there is a specific RSA or anything in the New Hampshire rules.
No, what's one of ours?
Typically, you would say that you wouldn't want a kid on a bus for more than an hour.
But
I mean, we don't actually have kids going quite that far, but
it can happen.
it certainly could, yep.
So again,
depending on.
we've talked about that, to Ron's point, we've talked about this, that we certainly believe that you'll receive a better education in the community and, the parents in the community, but you'll actually even have more instructional time because you'll be in the classroom rather than
Well, and
transported
I
back
think
and
kids
forth.
are more ready to learn and to
Right.
benefit from their program if they haven't been on a bus for an hour and been up since 5:30 in the morning.
Right.
Plus you're talking about kids who have a lot of different kinds of medical needs,
Sure.
and they're in their local community. Their parents presumably are close by, their pediatrician may be close by, so you've got,
There's a number of issues.
there's a safety factor in it, and also that you're not putting kids in the winter on buses long distance, because certainly the weather can be different here than it is someplace else.
And we saw that on our tour of the middle school. The nurses were preparing for the next day. Looked like they've been in there for a couple of days. And making sure all of it was coded into the computer so that when the children arrived the next day, they could put their finger on the button and have the answer that minute. They wouldn't get that on a bus ride.
So, any other questions from the audience?
Ron, could I ask, could we go to the Friends 2 program while
Yes.
Brian's up there and Cheryl's here, and she's got a long ride, so.
Okay.
And we don't care about Andy, we'll get him at the end.
He doesn't have a long ride.
No, you don't.
I'll welcome Cheryl Jacobs. She is the Special Ed Program Director at Matthew Thornton, and a little more in-depth information at the board's request about what is our Friends 2 program. What I tried to capture here was just sort of some general information about why we created this program, some general information about the students that we serve, and then really to talk about sort of the overview of the program, and I'll have Cheryl chime in on that as well. Friends 2 is a district-wide program that we created for students who have autism spectrum disorders. Just some sort of general information. The rate today is about 1 in 150 children are being diagnosed with some kind of concern relative to autism spectrum disorders. The medical community has no idea why. They don't know what's causing this. It's not simple enough to say it's sort of that we're doing a better job identifying this. Autism is a very complex disorder that creates different symptoms in different children's. There is a saying in the autism community that when you've met one children with autism, you've met one children with autism. The next one will be different. And what we've done is have created individualized and very unique programming to support the children we have here in Londonderry. I pulled some information here from a recent Harvard education newsletter, and at the risk of being on Sue Ballard's bad side, I did cite my source. The most sort of common characteristics. She's probably correcting
You're
my
the source,
citation in
Sue
red. Essentially, when you're talking about kids with autism, you're talking about difficulties with communication, difficulties with social interaction, and sort of severity-limited activities and routines, and kind of a lot of repetitive, inappropriate kinds of behaviors. There's a lot of misconceptions about autism. I think, unfortunately, our popular culture kind of captured, in Rain Man, people think of that as being a traditional kind of autistic individual with autism, and that's really not the case. There's a lot of misconceptions about autism. I just listed some there. Relative to developing in-house programs, as we've seen an increase in the number of children with autism, we've expanded the services and supports to students who have these intensive needs. Londonderry has made a significant effort to cultivate in-house expertise and develop appropriate programming options for students in their local communities. There are a lot of school districts that haven't made this programmatic shift and continue to outplace these students with these unique needs. Sort of some of the key elements of our program: early intervention, intensive curriculum, individualized instruction, individualized and group therapies for speech and language, occupational therapy, as well as behavioral therapy and physical therapy, behavioral supports, a strong collaborative therapeutic model where all the professionals working with these kids work together often and share information about kids. And we provide kids with inclusion opportunities. And what that means is we partner each of the children up with a homeroom, and to the extent that it's appropriate for them, they're given opportunities to be with their non-disabled peers in traditional, regular classrooms and create what we sort of define to be multiple points of access to the curriculum. So to have kids be able to access different parts of the curriculum in a meaningful way, so that a student might be part of Friends 2, but would have the ability to go into Mrs. Slozak's 4th grade classroom if she's doing something, and B, truly participating in a meaningful way. And that's really kind of an overview of the program. I'll ask Cheryl to chime in because she always has more information than I do.
The points of access for each child is truly individualized. As Brian pointed out, a child may go into Mrs. Slozak's room, but that point of access may be for attendance, lunch count. Typically, it's not for any academic or general curriculum area. It's for more of the socialization and to be able to participate with their non-disabled peers to the best of their ability. It truly is a joint effort where we try to have our speech pathologist, our occupational therapist, and the teacher and assistants working collaboratively within the setting of Friends 2. For those children that cannot participate in a typical classroom, even for attendance and lunch count, the Friends 2 is a self-contained program where the children would get off the bus and go directly to the Friends 2 room for their entire day. We try to have the kids out at recess with their non-disabled peers as well as in the lunchroom and attend any of the specials that they can. Some of our children may attend more than one art class a week or more than one music class a week, but yet not attend any of the other specials.
It's also interesting that I did put on the last page of this, to go back to what Dan was talking about relative to space needs. These are known children that we have in LEAP currently at the preschool level. We've got 4 children that we're looking at who are 3-year-olds who would be candidates for this program, 2 students who are 4-year-olds, and 3 students who are 5-year-olds. So just for the number of kids that I have at LEAP, we're looking at another increase of almost 10 kids over the next couple of years.
What does that mean?
What that means is that, so your 5-year-olds right now, these would be kids who are considered kindergarten students. These would be children that we would be beginning the transition process now, beginning to think about what those 3 children are going to need, what their programming is going to look like, and start to plan for what kinds of services they're going to need when they go into first grade. So just using straight line projections, next year we would see an increase of 3 kids. Now we do have a couple of students who will be moving out, so there's, sort of both ends, incoming and outgoing, but there seems to be an increasing number of younger kids who are going to require this kind of intensive therapeutic kind of program.
Yes.
Maybe I'm misunderstanding. These children at LEAP are the ones that are currently in Friends 1?
Yes.
Okay. They're not all the children that are coded with potential autism disorder.
They are most certainly not.
So my point was that if you had adequate space, you may provide additional services or services in a different fashion to those children that are on the spectrum, but not in our Friends program.
Not all of
I'd like
our,
to use the most severe of the severe, but these children are the ones that are
These
our Friends
children-
1 and Friends 2
the
program.
children that are in the Friends 2 program and the 3 students that actually Lynn and I started our transition this morning, talking about those 5-year-old students, are students that truly need individualized programs. We have many, many children within all 3 schools that have identifications of autism, Asperger's, that don't need the Friends 2
All
program.
of our schools,
I just-
through the high school.
I guess I wanted to get that point home. I was aware of that, but when Brian said 1 in 150 is national trends, it used to be 1 in 100,000 or some crazy number years ago. So we're no different. It's just that if you looked at these numbers, I don't want to mislead somebody and say Friends or Friends 2 is our artistic program, and somebody says, well, you only have
Right.
14
These would be
14
the
children
children
or
who
whatever it
truly
is.
need a separate,
Right.
specialized kind of program. And just to Cheryl's point, we have children in all of our buildings who have different kinds of autism. And again, it is truly a unique disorder, and it doesn't really affect 2 kids the same way. We have children at the high school who are,
Sure.
who have autism and are getting ready to go to college. So, I mean, it really runs the gamut relative to what their service needs are. And what we've done with Friends 1 and Friends 2 is we have responded programmatically to what our population has dictated. So as these children have matriculated through our schools and have had these intensive, unique programming kinds of needs, we've established these programs, again, to keep kids in district and to provide the services for them here. I did put at the bottom, Friends 3 program will be needed at the middle school for FY09. This is something that we've known about. We have children who are currently in 5th grade who will be going up to the middle school. We do not currently have a Friends 3 program that has this type of services at the middle school. So that's something I think we'll probably talk more about.
As you get the 10 children in the classroom, right now, you have one teacher, 6 assistants. Will that cover when we double the population?
One of the things I didn't say, but I did include on my supplemental information for space, if you look at the 4th page, I did change the staffing model on this. I went from, if you look at, it says cost staffing for these 3 programs, Friends 2, number of teachers, FY08 1, FY09 1, FY10 1. We did kind of get to a tipping point where I did move a second teacher into that program. I reduced an assistant, but I did put a second teacher into the program predicated on those student needs. I obviously factored that into my cost as well, but it does, the amount of data and the amount of individualized work that these children get is extremely time consuming. It is extremely labor intensive, and the growth that we see in kids is tangible. It's something that we can graph, we can chart it, we can monitor it. It's not as simple as just giving a kid the Iowa in the springtime. It's really much more labor intensive and requires hours and hours and hours of collecting data unique to each child. And then you can really see growth over time, but it's, in terms of sort of the ratio of staff to students, it is a very labor intensive population.
What happens with the space when you double the number of children?
Well, that's a great point, Ron. I mean, I think at this point, I mean, obviously, if you don't have the space, I don't know how you do
No.
the programs.
What I'm saying is the space you have today.
Space I have today would not support doubling of the children.
So you would virtually need double the amount of space you have today if you doubled the amount of children, roughly.
Yes,
There's a tipping point in there. Okay,
yes.
thank you. Steve?
On the, on the increase in space, if you go to 10, in the tours that we've gone on, you have the quiet rooms. Would you need more quiet rooms? In other words, could you still get along with 1, or would you need 2?
Probably, you would probably have, if you got to the point that you had, just for the sake of the example, if you had 10 to 12 kids, if you had 12 kids who needed that, intensive behavioral intervention, then yes. If you had sort of a gamut of kids that ranged, I guess, on a spectrum, then I guess it's probably hard to say. Cheryl?
It would be hard to say. Certainly, I think it's been our experience over the last couple of years that when one child is having a difficult day, it certainly sets off another.
Your conversations brought some knowledge to me that I didn't have, and that is my perception of the Friends program was completely self-contained, and that they did not exit the classrooms. And I guess that's from the tours that we've taken. We've seen the classrooms, we've seen that everything's there for them, and I had this misperception that that's where they spent their life. And I know that the direction is to try to get the students out into the mainstream as much as possible, but I thought that these students were so severe they couldn't leave.
Well,
For some are in that classroom for 100% of their day. We're very fortunate that many of the teachers at Matthew Thornton are very welcoming and look forward to having the students come in the morning, and as I said, they will go to their homeroom for lack of a better term, in elementary school, for attendance, to hang their coat, to put their lunchbox and backpack away, to take the notes for the day down to the office. Keep in mind, when they're doing this, they're always with a one-on-one assistant. They'll go back to their homeroom to get in line for lunch. Now, this has taken some time. When we first started the program, this wasn't so, and children have worked up to that. Hopefully, our first graders this year, by next year at this time, if I'm sitting here, talking about Friends 2, I'll be saying the second graders are doing that.
And I would say we have a similar model at Moose Hill, where if we had Bonnie come up, we have, the research really strongly shows that if you can provide kids the individualized instruction that they need and then provide appropriate peer role models to the extent that there's really a tangible benefit to that. So we do have children who are in the Friends 1 program at Moose Hill who go into different kindergarten classes, who might, even just a very similar model to what Cheryl was talking about. Obviously, it's a little different in terms of the amount of time, but we have kids that we try to do that. And some days, I mean, again, just sort of highlighting the differences in children with autism, some days they can do it beautifully, some days it's not an option at all, because for whatever reason, they're really having a difficult time. So we do have that same model at the kindergarten level and at Moose Hill.
Just one last thing, Brian. I don't know how to address this, and I understand we have issues with privacy with our students. I know that the schools have offered and said, why don't you come in and observe? And frankly, I feel uncomfortable with that. I feel that I would be an intrusion. I feel that this is just me, and I feel that I would be. There's a privacy issue there with these students. Is there? And I think a lot of us up here, or in the audience, or in the community, have no idea of what these students are like. And are there any training videos, or are there any that you have from other districts or examples, so that someone could say, and here's someone who is at the lowest level, excuse my terms if they're wrong or politically incorrect, here's someone at this lowest level, and we service people at this level. Here's someone who is in the classroom for 10% of the day, and this is what they're like. And here's someone who's in the classroom for 50% of the day. I think that it would help the community to understand the challenge you have and the space needs you have. I mean, I understand it when I go in the room and watch one of the budget committee members test the quiet room. I can imagine in my mind the type of student that must be in there and the reasons that they're in there. But maybe my imagination is too much, or maybe my imagination isn't enough. And I guess to find a way for the community to understand what you have to work with every day.
Confidentiality is truly important to me and to any parent, I think, out there. But for you personally to really experience, what we do on a daily basis, I do invite you to come and spend some time with us. It's really the only way for you to really capture what goes on a daily basis. Other than that, Primetime TV has done many segments. 2020, I think just last year, did a show on applied behavioral analysis and working with severely autistic children.
See, and then that type of thing. I mean, I can understand being on the board and making the fiduciary decisions for the community. It would make sense for me, but you don't want the 25,000 people that live in the community in there. But maybe a list of, if you liked this, you'll love to read, or
Like video links maybe,
Be
or
happy to
some
do that.
or
net
on our
resources.
website, links to organizations that may have video clips.
Be happy to do that.
That
Almost
might
like a
work.
baseline, Steve, in terms of,
You've talked tonight about students that go into the classroom for 5% of their day. If someone could connect to a website that specializes in autistic students that can only tolerate 5% of a day, I think it might help the community to understand why we need this special space. Because they have to pay for it. So they really need to understand why they need it.
I think we could
no
try to put together some links, and I guess I would say if there are community members who are interested in that, I'll try to put something together and people could email me and I could send them the links, or we could post them.
don't-
We can talk about it in Communications Committee meeting, too.
Right.
Yeah.
Also, some of that stuff, I think, a 3 or 4 minute clip here. Again, I truly believe, and Steve hit, I think, it right on the head. The community in general, you list names here. I mean, you're talking about Friends now, but if I go back to your other memo, you talk about different programs, really nice names. And you talk about it. You got BAS, PFS. But what does that mean to the community? How does that affect what happens in the classroom? I know you can't show the individual children here, but videos of 2 or 3 minutes that would show this to educate the community to understand that. You live it every day. We get involved a little bit more than a normal resident in the community, but we have to get the word out there somehow to show what we're talking about and what this means. They'll take, you look at it and you can say, okay, I know an artistic child that's going on to college. That's one. That's not the child you're talking about here.
No.
And that's the issue that we have to try to relay or give that information to the community so they can make an intelligent decision.
You bring the video, and I'll bring the Kleenex.
Okay, Nate,
Yeah,
I don't know how to do it,
Yeah,
but
I think there are a couple approaches we can probably take. One, I think the idea of getting up on our webpage a whole bunch of links and resources to do it. The other thing too is we might be able to have some of the parents come in with some of their kids and do a video with parent permission, have parents talk about it, and we can talk about programs and maybe an overview. We'll play with it. There may also be, through those links, they may also have some videos that we could use, and maybe what we could do is blend the video with the Leo 21 program so that people could see it. So there are, in fact, legitimate privacy issues, but we may have some parents that would want to talk about it as opposed to having the kids on, and if we can get videos from the Autism Society or whatever, I think that would be helpful, just to get the idea out there.
And it's not only autism, there's other programs that we run in the district that we need to show the community what's going on in our schools, or what's happening and how we're taking care of it. Dan?
I just have one quick question for Cheryl and Brian. Friends 2 evolved out of Friends 1. There was a need, we had to address these children, and potentially we probably, and maybe that's a bad word, but we probably looked at outsourcing these children at some point. The community has to be aware, and Brian mentioned it, it's in the strategic plan, so it's nothing new, that Andy in the middle school is going to be facing an issue, and we, as a community, have to address. We talk about transitioning the children out of LEAP and kindergarten into Friends 2, but we also have to really address, and we are next year, I believe, transitioning them into the middle school. It isn't that we have a block of children here and all of a sudden it's happening. We could put a Friends 3, if you want to call it that, or whatever acronym we so choose. We have children at the middle school now that certainly qualify for that, and to our travels around, if you look at the space there that those children have, spaces had to be rearranged to accommodate that. So the children are already in the middle school and potentially the high school, I simply don't know. But I know for a fact that it's not back to my LEAP and people are being addressed, there's a larger percentage of the population. That population already exists at the middle school too, does it not? And these feeder programs, well, these programs, and we have some autism children that are on the spectrum, potential candidates, because we started Friends 2 with 4 last year, and now it's grown. But again, and I can't hammer it home enough, in my mind, if we have the space, I think we would potentially further address needs of children that I don't want to say aren't being addressed now, because by God, I know we're doing a great job, but I
space is
think we're
tight.
going to need the space up there.
And I know Andy's here now. I was in Andy's office this afternoon talking about space needs and what some of our, whether it's having appropriate bathroom facilities for kids with
Right.
disabilities, or it's appropriate space for the expansion of sort of our programmatic infrastructure. You're exactly correct. And I know that Andy is on board with that.
Sure.
Peter and I have talked, Chuck's talked to all of us about that, because we are transitioning and getting ready to transition kids now. So we're making plans, we're looking at what the impact's gonna be in terms of what students' programs look like when it moves between buildings. You know, kids who are in 5th grade going to 6th grade, what are their needs gonna be? And we do that very methodically so that we don't have, I mean, there's always gonna be sort of what I would deem to be budget surprises in special ed, whether it's a student's situation changes or you have students move in. But we try and work very hard to make sure that we are budgeting appropriately, planning the appropriate services for students that we have and students that we know about, whether it's moving from grade to grade or building to building.
And I believe that.
Any other questions? Brian, thank you. That was an excellent job you did. And
Thank you,
Cheryl,
Cheryl.
thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you,
Appreciate all
Brian.
the information here. More to follow on this subject. Okay. Cost containment.
Yes. The board members have in your packet a series of reports from Peter, Susie, and Chuck regarding cost containment activities that have occurred over the last several years. And I'm going to ask them to address the board in the order in which your information is in the packet. So we'll have Peter go first, followed by Susie, and then we'll finish up with electricity man, Mr. Zapla, the tail end. So the part of the point here, I think, just overall, and then Peter, Susie, and Chuck are going to get in it. One of the things that we have tried to do, and I'm using the term collectively, because the board has been instrumental in many of these, is to look for ways in which we could effectuate either outright savings or cost containment in a lot of areas to minimize impact on taxpayers, maximize delivery of service, and allow us, in a sense, to utilize more dollars for instruction, which is our primary goal. So with that as an opening statement, I'm going to go to Peter, and then to Susie, and then to Chuck. Peter?
Nate really asked me to talk about one area that is more visible than most, and that's the area of transportation. The board is aware of that we have like 2 transportation contracts, really. One is for regular education transportation. One is for the special education. Several years ago, we, as we know, we did that our contract with Goffstown Truck had expired. We went out to bid, received 3 proposals, if my memory serves me correct. 2 were very close. The board agreed with the recommendation to stay with Goffstown. Two things that were significant dollar savings to the district at the time. One was the cost per bus was stagnant for 1 year. So the dollar amount that we're paying at the end of the contract per bus was the same dollar per bus for the first year. So there was no increase in 1 year of bus. And then, as Brian had alluded to, and this is in both in regular ed, and when he and I went over the special ed bids and so forth, and what was going to be in the RFP, both contracts have a non-fuel escalation clause, which simply means the price per bus is fixed, regardless if there are spikes in the cost of gasoline or diesel, whatever the fuel the buses use. I think I gave an example. It's hard to determine. We were trying to, but it's hard to put a dollar value on the regular ed buses, what that is. But my memo says that each bus does 70 miles a day. If you remember, for those who don't know, each bus does 6 runs if you want to look at it that way. They do the high school, the middle school, the elementary in the morning, and then do the same thing in the afternoon. So on average, each bus does 70 miles a day. This year, we have 41 buses, 180 days, and that doesn't include field trips, athletics, others, special requests. When we did on special education, the big drop in special education transportation was when we went out to bid, and we hadn't gone out to bid for several years. If those on the board remember, Brian and I did an RFP, and the significant savings really in the first year was about a $264,000 drop from what we were paying for special education transportation in district to what the new contract was costed out. And the other significant savings in special education, because of the company we use, or the vendor provider, has several other local districts in the area. As Brian had mentioned earlier, the special education department has really been able to take advantage of ride sharing, which means if there's several students from Derry, Londonderry, Hudson, Litchfield, going to one particular out-of-district placement location, the cost of the trip is kind of shared among the sending organizations. So there's some savings involved by spreading the cost to 4 or 5 districts. That was really my little piece. There are others that I'll talk about in a second, but let's go through the list as needed.
Any questions on transportation? Okay.
Susie?
Good evening.
Hi.
All right. I'd like to kind of piggyback with Peter on the school bus. We always have the new teachers come for new teacher orientation. And something that we've added is we take all the teachers around to all the schools on a school bus. And Ken, he just does that gratis for us. So these are nice little things that he does. As you see from my report, out of our budget of $59,016,499, 76% of it is personnel costs. So my little department kind of eats up a lot of the budget there. But I would like to say that through the efforts of my partners in my department, Cindy McMahon, who's the benefits coordinator, and Melissa Thompson, who is the recruitment specialist. In other words, I call them the discount duo. They are very thrifty and look at all the ways that they can certainly save money. So on the first page, we talked about we're always looking at the vendors for life insurance and short-term disability and long-term disability, and we were able to get a nice cost savings through our life insurance and short-term, long-term. Advertising, that's a big chunk of our budget. Through Melissa's efforts with, for example, when we try a new online service, she'll always say, "Well, can we do this about 3 months for free just to see if we like it?" And she's I don't know how she does it, but she always seems to get them to do it, and so we get to try different websites, and we have really had a cost savings in advertising. And from FY 2000, we spent $17,832, and in FY 07, $5,182. So, of course, online has really helped us with that because it's so much cheaper than print, and and then through union negotiations, which is it's a teamwork effort between the school board members and administration. We've tried to get savings through our different negotiations, and for example, custodians, we did a different type of overtime classification, and we had quite a savings. It was able to put some of our lower class personnel in the rotation for overtime, so it wasn't our higher priced people always getting the overtime, so there was quite a savings there. And then on my, I'm very proud of our on-site master's program. We've partnershiped with Revere College, and they come and do the class on-site. So they've knocked a third off. Instead of being around $1,200, it's around $800. So for our course reimbursement, that has certainly saved a lot of money, and we've had over 193 staff members that have joined into the master's program at one time or another, taking classes and moving on to get their master's. So that's been a great savings for us. The last thing that I'm really trying to focus on a lot this year, health insurance. We all know the prices are going up, and there's a lot of times there's not much we can do about it. But there is one area, and I know when I mention to the staff and I come walking in and say, okay, we're going to have a wellness committee, it seems like everybody turns around and walks the other way. They've had it up to here with wellness committees. But it is a way to at least help to keep the cost down. If everybody's well and doesn't use it, our costs don't go up. So we're trying very hard this year to have Weight Watchers. We're going to start a walking program. We're doing nutritional cooking, eating, supplements, seminars. We're really going to try to focus in on that, and you won't see the cost savings right away, but I think in the long run, it really will show something. So,
Susie,
Yes.
for the viewing public,
Yes.
You talked about some of the cost savings, but I think it's important that people hear some of the numbers that are here. The overtime savings because of the classification. Over 2 years, that's $22,000 savings, or $22,000 cost avoidance. Going from the 3-tier to the 2-tier health plan for the support staff in FY05, cost avoidance of $59,419, FY06, $69,520, and FY07, $79,948, substantial dollars. Then, too, I think if we go back to effective FY05, where in negotiations we made an adjustment so that support staff have to work 1,300 hours to qualify for health insurance instead of the 5 hours a day. Since then, we had 73 new hires that would have qualified under the old health insurance. Based on a 2-person plan, we've had 73 people who could have enrolled. So the net cost avoidance on that is $788,400 from FY05 to FY07. So you start these numbers begin to add up cumulatively to significant cost avoidance over a period of time. The other thing too is both administrators and non-affiliated staff switched insurance carriers, and in FY07 the savings was $96,000, and FY08 the cost avoidance is $107,000. So you've got over $200,000 in cost avoidance there. So when you start to add it up, it is a significant number of dollars over the past few years as far as actions that the board has taken, and also in cooperation with the bargaining units on switches that have made, I think, a significant difference. And then one other point I want to make, we had some discussions last year about being more paperless, and I think sometimes we don't give ourselves enough, well, some people in our organization enough credit. It's really interesting to note we're doing, I would say, as much, if not more, advertising for positions during FY07 as we were in 2000, and there is over a $12,000 difference in advertising costs because we're using on-site web-based advertising much more than we are newspapers. So there's significant cost savings there. The switch from life insurance over the 2-year period is a savings of $42,000. So the numbers here, I think, are impressive numbers. You start to add that up, and because a couple of months from now we're going to be talking about budget, but you take a look at the cumulative cost avoidance for better quality special ed programs, these kinds of things that we've had, that we're talking about here tonight, and what Chuck's gonna talk about, that shows that in fact the school district is making significant progress in cost avoidance and at the same time providing as good, if not better level of service, and I think that's important to stress. There you go.
Questions? Okay, seeing,
This past summer, we reached a pretty significant milestone in our energy conservation efforts in the district. We partnered with a company called Energy Education back in the spring of 2000 to design and implement an energy conservation plan throughout the district. Energy Education is a company based out of Texas that works with school districts throughout the country. They have about 800 right now that they work with to design and implement these cost-saving or energy-saving plans. And after just over 7 years of using the program, we reached the $2 million mark in cumulative cost avoidance energy savings. That's about a 28% decrease in natural gas, water, fuel oil, and of course electricity is where we reached our biggest savings. I think a lot of the credit, the lion's share of the credit, needs to go to Bob Lees, who is our district-wide energy manager. For the past 7 years, a couple of nights a week and every single weekend, has been walking through the schools, make sure computers, lights are shut off, thermostats are set back to where they should be, but also the staff for being so cooperative and on board. I don't want to say it's been easy, but it has made it a lot easier for us. I received a phone call a couple of weeks ago from Charles Fosnot, who's the Vice President of Energy Education, and he was congratulating us on our efforts. And he couldn't be here tonight, but he doesn't intend to fly up for a board meeting, hopefully next month, and recognize us, give us a little award for our efforts.
questions? Peter?
Only two comments I want to make is, first of all, these are samples of what we all do and to save money and provide cost-effective means. I don't want anyone to think that this is the only thing that we do that saves money. Some of them are visible than others, healthcare, transportation, at the end, the cost of energy. But, for example, some of them are really invisible. Keeping a clean audit and keeping a high bond rating, for example, would go completely invisible, except when it comes for bond rating, the bond rating turns into the cost of borrowing money, so forth and so on, becomes an issue, and yet, you know, it's invisible to most people. But little things like that all of us principals, administrators do, and, you know, often could save money, but it's invisible to the naked eye or on a day-to-day basis. So I think, as a district, I think we're always looking for, most of us are taxpayers in the area. So that, I want to know that this is like a sample of what we do, that there's far more things that do that are just not visible on a day-to-day basis on top of what we see here.
Have we, and this is specific to the energy, although not sure the amount of hiring they do in the town, maybe it would apply on your side too, but have we now shared our success and brought them into the fold? I know you had authorization from the company that it would be okay for us to do that.
We're still kind of laying the groundwork on that. The board actually passed a policy back in 2000 as to how we would approach the program, and that energy conservation would be required by all staff members, and gave a copy of that to the town manager. And for the town to be successful, they would have to do the same sort of thing, pass that policy. They are gathering together a year's worth of energy bills to provide the baseline so that we can enter that information.
Okay.
And then the work really begins once all that's in place.
Because I read for some odd reason, it was in my house, a copy of Town Management News Journal, and it talked about how innovative towns are being by coming up with these energy savings programs. But how innovative we've been since 2000. So it would be nice to get them on board and help them to save too. It's all the same pair of pants, right?
Any other questions for Chuck, Susie, or Peter? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Andy?
Yeah, thank you.
Save Our History Grant.
I just wanted to take a moment to share some news with the board. Bob McCullen, Andy Brown have been working hard with the political club, and recently, in August, we were informed that we had qualified for a grant of $10,000 for the middle school to work with the History Channel for a Save Our History grant. What students will be doing, both high school and middle school students, will be developing a DVD and curriculum lessons that will be distributed to all 157 middle schools in the state of New Hampshire. The goal is to kind of review the history of the primary. It's not about going out and watching the 2008 campaigns and things like that. It's more, why is this so unique to New Hampshire? There were only 27 of these grants awarded across the country, and I'd like to thank Annie Kalachi, Bob Mack, Andy Brown, and Laurie Fisher, who's with the state, for all their efforts. So the middle school and high school students will be making the decisions regarding the video, directing it, producing it, and distributing the DVD. The school club will be working hand in hand with Laurie Fisher from the New Hampshire Primary Library. We really look at this just as an opportunity to take learning out into a whole new realm for these children. It's a wonderful group of kids. The political club has been in existence for about 3 years now. They, on Thursday, will be going up to the historical library for their first part in their first field trip to this grant, and they will be doing interviews with people there and looking at a wealth of memorabilia on this. It's really an exciting thing, and Bob and Andy are jumping on board and just doing a terrific job. Bob, Andy, and Laurie Fisher are trying to work out a date to come back to the board in October so that they can tell you firsthand. Bob's problem tonight is he's actually out with a group of political candidates, supporters, trying to get them to come and visit and offer our children more opportunities through this grant. Any questions from the board?
Dan?
How many students are we talking about, Andy?
Right now, it'd be 21 that have turned in permission slips, and I think that number will
It's a fair
grow.
number.
Yeah, and this evolved out of what was an academy, an after-school academy program that we ran,
Great.
and now it's really taken off.
Yeah, that's a considerable amount to start.
Yeah, and I'd like to thank the, and I don't know their names, I've forgotten them, but the high school editors from the newspaper were there. It'll be covered in the Londonderry High School paper, so there's a lot of interaction between the two schools, which is great.
Great.
So the middle school kids have high school kids as mentors and as guides, and, you know, I think you'll see more kids get involved as we kind of move forward and it really takes off.
Excellent.
Great.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much, sir. The overnight field trip?
Yes, you have in your packet request for overnight field trip to Camp Dakota for our World Studies class. This is the same trip these students have taken 3 years in a row, and if you remember, they came and we had a report on it. They reported back to the board. It's been very successful as part of the World Studies class, and we're just simply requesting permission. They will be gone October 3, 4, and 5. Question, the students pay $90 and we raise and fund $90 to cover the cost.
Discussion from the board? Motion?
I'll make a motion, Ron, to support the World Studies class trip to Camp Dakota.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 4-0. Nate brings up my favorite point again, our overnight policy.
Right. Oh, yes, yeah, oh, okay, right. Did I say right? Yes, I said right.
writing it down.
Right, overnight policy.
I have a
right.
little, my home computer, I have a little cricket on it. I always push when times like this come up.
Okay. Okay, we have policies, reading, and this is based on using the CDs for our policy manual. First policy is BFD.
Right.
Policy dissemination.
Right, what we've done is you'll see in the color, I think it's tan, is that what that color is?
I think Sue told me salmon.
Salmon, whatever color it is. That's the old policy. We've made an adjustment in the
Desert
policy.
sand.
Pardon?
Desert sand.
Desert sand, okay.
Sue led me astray.
Right. And we've made an adjustment in this policy and in the reg, based on the discussion we had at the last board meeting, since in effect, we're putting the policy book on CDs and posting it on the web. You can see a change, and basically what we're saying is hard copies of the policy manuals will be available for inspection at the superintendent's office and the public library, whereas the old policy said that we'd have the manuals in all the schools. And then the change in the regulation, we've included policy books and CDs shall contain the date when they were last updated. Policy administrators shall maintain a master policy book. All the policy books / CDs shall from time to time, but at least annually, be called in and updated. And then we have copies of the manual and CDs shall be placed on the district website and available in each school's main office and school library media center. So in essence, what we're doing is, instead of having the hard copies out in the schools, on the CD and on the website, which I think is the direction the board wanted us to go in, and certainly would save us some paper. So there you go. So it's just minor changes to reflect the actions the board had asked us to take.
Okay.
Bravo.
Can I have a motion to accept the policy for first reading?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Can I have a motion on BFD-R, which is the regulation?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion?
Keep it easy for Mary.
Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we have the policy review and reevaluation manual and accuracy check, BFG and BFGA. Have a motion on the revision on that.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Anything else for, yes, Ben and Reed, do you want to talk about the exchange, foreign exchange?
I'll defer to Reed.
He's waited all night for this.
Well, I don't want to
Not the answer he wanted it.
Defer. I'm before you today to give you some exciting news. If you watched the counselors, I was going to say show, the counselors meeting last night, you saw some very vivid and vivacious dancers from Russia. They will be arriving here on October 4th, and they will be getting a tour of Londonderry, headed by myself, on October 5th, and they will be performing in Londonderry on October 6th at a place that is yet undecided, but
Reed, if I can interrupt.
Yeah,
I believe it has been decided. They'll be performing at the middle school gym.
Not quite.
Don't look at me, it changed
you
decided
Change it
about
after
20
the-
minutes ago.
If we can interrupt,
Yeah.
it hasn't been decided.
Sorry.
I think I'll go.
Obviously,
Anybody else want to interrupt?
What tables?
I do have a,
All right.
I do have a recommendation,
okay.
and I wasn't going to make it because it was pushing 7 o'clock at the beginning of the meeting, but you can rent wooden dance floors, and that might be a solution to this problem, to talk with, like, for instance, Ron at the Yard, find out where they rent their dance floors, and they bring these in and they put them down on hard surfaces so that you could have the best of both worlds. A facility where people can have their snacks and they can also dance on wood. That is the issue, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. But what, so what are you saying?
I think I gave an action item to Peter.
Right. I got
Find
that
a rented dance floor.
I got that hint.
Because I think the issue for us, and I don't want Ben to get whistled, because Ben called me, we were under the impression it was gonna be Igor and what was the female dancer name?
Pollyanna.
Pollyanna, okay.
Paulina.
Paulina. We're basically just gonna do a demonstration. That was our understanding. And then it turned out it wasn't just them, it was gonna be, everybody else was gonna be dancing, plus there was gonna be tables and there was gonna be food. So we could have had either the middle school gym or the high school gym for one couple with the felt on the bottom of their shoes doing the dancing, but then we can't have people with street shoes all doing ballroom dancing and stuff on the gym floor. So what we can do is find a venue in the schools, and Peter will look to see if we can rent a wooden dance floor so we could accommodate everybody. So we can meet the needs of the cultural committee, Igor and Pollyanna, and those other people who want to
But
dance.
with regard to my press release, you still didn't tell me where.
We'll know by the end of the day tomorrow. But if we can rent a wooden floor like Mr. Young is suggesting, and we'll probably do the best we can to have it at the high school gym. But I told Julie I'd be getting a hold of her in the morning tomorrow.
High
Okay.
school cafeteria.
High school cafeteria, sorry. Sorry.
Cafeteria you're talking about.
Yes, I'm sorry.
I couldn't get anything into the high school gym. So therefore, it would be wonderful if two Russians could. Okay.
Very good one, Reed.
You can get a basketball game or something.
Well, you
I
could,
listen to everything.
You can get a basketball game, Reed.
Yeah, it would be nice.
Yeah, there you go.
if you had
Okay.
people vote on the best dancer, so that's one way of voting.
Okay, so I'm leaving tomorrow morning at 6 a.m., so somebody's gotta let Julie know
Julie,
where
yeah.
and that
Right.
sort of thing.
Yep.
Okay?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anything else for public session? Seeing none, may I please have a motion to go into
Make a
non-public?
motion to go into non-public session requested under RSA 91:A:3, Section 2A through I.
Know that.
Second.
Roll call.
Aye,
Steve
Dan
Young.
Beaver.
Ron Campo. We're in non-public. If you're in this room, you're on the mic.
Pollyanna doing it.
That was very good.
That's your stuff.